how they were approaching the race in those initial laps, but he did keep his head calm and carved his way from 5th back into 2nd position after the first third of the race. We caught a glimpse of Jonathan Rea. I think it's fair to say that was the best performance that we've seen so far from the number 65 this season. He finished in 5th position after a pretty interesting battle with Scott Redding, another rider who we haven't been used to seeing in those sort of positions in recent rounds. Both of them will be expected to make a step today. Here's Danilo Petrucci. He was the 3rd rider on the podium after yesterday's race. Another rider who qualified out of position. The number 9 qualified on the back of the 3rd row of the grid yesterday, but also kept his head calm and had quite good race pace. He was actually one of the only riders to go on that harder option, that harder rear tyre option in the race, and it seemed to suit him quite well as he made his way through the field. Yeah, for the Ducati riders, most of them opted for that harder tyre. Obviously, we missed out on seeing what Bautista could do with the turn 1 crasher. We saw that Scott Redding went with the soft tyre, Sam Lowes went with the soft tyre. It looked like the X was probably the tyre to be on, but for the likes of Ray. There weren't that many moves necessarily between the number 45 and the number 65, but it was really exciting just to watch how he was holding on to that position and really securing position in the parts of the track where the Ducati wasn't necessarily working all that well compared to Jonathan Ray's Yamaha. Yeah, Ray and Locatelli had 2 or 3 tenths of a second, you'd have to think, over Redding, but Redding was in position to be able to defend, and that was the key thing for him, just to be able to give himself that chance. In Superbikes now, you can fall back through the field. It's very difficult to come forward through the field, and I think Scott was a good example of that yesterday. Made a good start, saw the carnage in front of him, and then made sure he was coming through. 17th on the grid. He will be 17th as well on the grid for the Superpole race later on. Quite a few riders actually did manage to gain a few positions in the opening laps, given the incidents that we did have. We had a turn 1 incident involving several Ducatis. It was Jari Montella perhaps who let's say provoked that incident, which ended up bringing down as well Sam Lowes, and Alvaro Bautista once again caught up in an opening lap incident. Quite unfortunate for the 2-time world champion, but it's one of those things that also does tend to happen when you qualify in the middle of the grid. Yeah, and it was one of those ones again. We're into turn 1. Montella and his teammate Petrucci get close to one another. There's contact between them. You're just pinching each other in the run into turn 1, and it happens. And then unfortunately for Lowes in particular, he's done nothing wrong. He's qualified at the front of the field. He's in front of the accident and then gets taken out by the Barney bike. And then for Alvaro Bautista, we see here in the 19 bike,
Alvaro has nowhere to go because he's qualified in the midfield, and it was another example this season of Alvaro having those opening lap crashes. And when you think back to Portimao, there was the incident with Scott Redding. Assen, there was the incident with Sam Lowes, and then another one yesterday, and then Most as well with Jonathan Ray. It's 4 first lap incidents that have really hurt Alvaro's chances this year.
Unfortunately, that means that he is 23 points down on Danilo Petrucci now in the championship standings. Of course, still a long way to go before the end of the season, but it does show just how that inconsistency as well from the two-time world champion, given his own mistakes as well at some point in the season, have really conditioned his fight to go in that top 3.
Yeah, and for Alvaro as well, they've all been in the feature-length races, so they've all been when potentially there's obviously 25 points on offer. So it's one thing to have it like Bullock will be right on board with having his incident in the Super Pole race, but for Alvaro, it's been a lot of points left at the table.
Quite a few riders on a hot lap now in this 10-minute warm-up session. It's nearly over as soon as it started in World SBK. Just a mention on one of the riders who's on a hot lap now. Ryan Vickers just moves up to 7th in the timing sheet. He had by far his best qualifying performance in World SBK in his rookie season. He qualified on the 3rd row of the grid, struggled a little bit more in race conditions, but it has been a promising performance so far from him as number 17. Potentially to be expected, because this was the one track on the calendar where he had plenty of experience, where he could perhaps apply a bit more of his knowledge and to race in Ducati.
Yeah, I thought it's been a really good weekend so far for Ryan. Obviously yesterday in the races he ends up down the order in 12th, but second a lap off Top Rack's pace. It wasn't too bad considering the tyre drop that everyone was suffering from, and having been fast all the way through this week. There was one moment in yesterday's race when he couldn't quite clear the riders he was battling with, and then he fell down the order. If he had been able to clear the likes of Van der Mark a little bit quicker, maybe he would have been able to finish inside the top 10.
Just a word on Van der Mark, because he is the one rider who hasn't set a lap time so far in this session. He is currently in the pits. Here he is, a number 60, so not quite sure what the issue is there. He doesn't seem to be too happy with the situation. Fortunate for the number 60, he finished in 30.
Race. I think Mikey was suffering from that, because in the opening half of the race he was up inside the top 8 or 9 positions and looking very comfortable, but obviously it's a long race here on a superbike with 23 laps. GP rider and lead their project.
The clock keeps ticking as well, because other teams will try to make their decision. Other riders will want to keep their future secure as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see and hear what's been said everywhere, because for the likes of Aruba Ducati, what happens there is key. We know that they want to have a young rider. We know they want to have a rider that fits the mold of Bulaga, which is a Moto2 rider or a super sport rider. Jaume Masia was linked with them pretty heavily as a rider coming through from Supersport. Aaron Canet is the other rider that could potentially go there, and if Canet has the option to jump onto a Ducati, he won't earn as much money in his wage salary as if he goes somewhere else in the Superbike paddock, but he'll be on the best bike, a new bike, and then the chance to earn a lot in bonus money. So it's an interesting prospect for someone like Canet, that he could jump on there and he'd certainly feel, I'm a better Moto2 rider than Bulaga ever was. I'm going to be able to contend at the front.
And seeing the career path that Bulaga has had in recent years as well, and the prospect of him potentially even moving into MotoGP, that is also kind of the carrot that they can dangle in front of someone like Canet, who currently potentially wouldn't have that option to be able to follow, let's say, an alternative route into the MotoGP class. We caught a glimpse of Alex Lowes as well on the track. He is down in 16th position currently. Alex Lowes, of course, had a big crash yesterday while leading a race in the opening laps. Did seem to hurt his ankle a bit. He has been past fit for today's races, but it does seem as if at the moment the number 22 is struggling a little bit in this session to get back up to pace.
Yeah, I had a quick word with Alex this morning just to see how he was, and he said that the warm-up session is important, just to be able to go out and see how he feels on the bike and then make your assessment afterwards. It was a real shame for him, but it was also one of those situations. He had a chance to win the race, and definitely a chance to be on the podium, and he tried to grab it with both hands, was riding really well. He said that at that stage of the race, he really felt that this is a good chance. Try and open up as much of a gap as you can and then survive at the end. Said that he'd obviously expect Toprak would have come back past him, but he thought everyone else was there to be had. So he was trying to make sure he had the chance for the best result possible. And sometimes you're on the tightrope at the limit, and he found that yesterday. It was a really unfortunate one for him, but at least he was able to show that the Bimota has the potential to win races here.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Speaking with his crew chief, Perry, before the race, Perry was quite adamant that the podium wasn't necessarily the target. He was just gathering a bit more information and seeing what they could do. But you have to imagine that once you're in that position, you're on the bike and you've got that sort of mindset that riders do have, you're always going to be trying to push that little bit more. You're always going to be trying to get the best results possible and get the podium. And for Alex Lowe's, who has had so much success here at Donington Power in the past, he got the 2 podiums in the long races last year. Obviously, he saw that was within sight, and unfortunately for him, his career ended his race ended prematurely. But he will get 2 more chances today if his ankle can hold up and if he can feel okay on the bike.
And what's good to see as well, Sam Lowe's up there second fastest in this session. Sam took a big knock to the shoulder in that crash yesterday, and obviously, given his Moto2 career and his incident last year in Most, always a bit of a concern for him anytime the shoulder's involved. But second fastest in this session shows that he's going to be thereabouts all the way through this one. He said that yesterday with the softer tyre, he really thought that he would have been in the mix to beat Danilo Petrucci for a podium.
Danilo Petrucci, who starts on the back of the 3rd row of the grid, he came through quite well yesterday in race 1. It might be a bit more difficult in a Super Bowl race, and that opens up the possibility for the likes of Sam Lowe's to start 5th, for the likes of Alex Lowe's to start in the 3rd, or Jonathan Ray between them on the 4th spot on the grid to be able to fight for that podium. It's probably their best chance to get a podium this weekend at Donington Park.